The crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling at the Grand Dominion Country Club were so bright, they felt like they were drilling straight into my skull. I stayed toward the back of the ballroom, tugging at the strap of my plain black dress and wishing I could loosen it without anyone noticing. I had picked it up off a department store rack for $50, and it showed. My mother had already pulled me aside twice to remind me that I looked more like hired staff than a guest. I ignored her, took a slow sip of my sparkling water, and glanced at my watch. I had no interest in impressing a room full of people who barely knew my name. The only reason I was there was because the night was meant to celebrate my father, Victor Ross. He was turning 60, and somehow that milestone had turned into a full-blown monument to his own ego. A giant banner stretched above the stage announcing, "Lieutenant Colonel Ross, a legacy of command," like we were all supposed to stand at attention. My father was planted near the buffet table, laughing loud enough to drown out the soft conversations around him. He had squeezed himself into his old army mess dress uniform, which pulled tight across his stomach and looked like it was one deep breath away from popping a button. He had retired 2 decades earlier as a lieutenant colonel, pay grade 05, but if he could have worn that uniform to buy milk, he would have done it without hesitation. To him, rank was everything. If you did not have it, you barely counted. I watched from a distance as he trapped a local city councilman and launched into stories about holding defensive lines in wars that wrapped up long before that man was even alive. It was embarrassing to watch, but no one there had the nerve to shut him down. Standing beside him was my brother, Kevin, clutching a glass of scotch like it gave him purpose. Kevin was 35 years old, made his living selling overpriced insurance policies, and still showed up at our parents' house every Sunday with a bag of dirty clothes. When he spotted me lingering near the wall, he elbowed our father and nodded in my direction. Both of them turned to look at me, and whatever pride they had been wearing on their faces drained away fast. What replaced it was the same annoyed look you give a stray animal that sneaks inside when you leave the door open. They headed over together, like I had been summoned. My father approached with a stiff, overdone march he thought made him look disciplined and strong, but to me it just screamed bad joints and stubborn pride. "Elena," he said flatly, skipping any kind of greeting. His eyes swept over me from head to toe, and his mouth twisted in clear disapproval. "I told you this was a black tie event," he said. "You look like you are dressed for a hamster's funeral." "It is a cocktail dress, Dad," I replied under my breath. "Happy birthday." Kevin let out a short laugh and swirled his drink. "It looks cheap," he added, "but I guess that is what you get when you work a government desk job." "What is it you do again?" my father asked, squinting at me like he was trying to place a stain on the carpet. "Do you file tax forms for the motor pool or something?" "Logistics," I replied, rolling out the same answer I had been giving for the past 15 years. It was easier that way. "I deal with supply chain paperwork." "Paperwork," my father repeated, like the word itself offended him. He shook his head slowly. I raised a warrior and ended up with a secretary. He straightened up and lowered his voice, like he was sharing classified information. "General Sterling will be here tonight. A 4-star general. A real war hero. Try not to make me look bad when he arrives." Then he added, "Do not speak unless someone speaks to you first." My jaw tightened for half a second, but I kept my face neutral. I had learned that skill early. "I know who General Sterling is, Dad," I said evenly. "I doubt that," he snapped back. "You would not recognize real leadership if it walked up and bit you. Just stay near the back of the room and make sure that cheap dress of yours does not end up in any photographs." That was when my mother, Sylvia, drifted over like a dark cloud with good posture. She had always treated cruelty like it was a form of polite conversation. In her hand was an oversized glass of red wine, and she was wrapped in a silver gown that probably cost more than my first car ever did. She did not bother smiling at me. Instead, her eyes locked onto a loose thread near my shoulder. "Stand up straight, Elena," she said flatly. "You are slouching. It makes you look defeated." "I am fine, Mom," I said. She took a slow sip of her wine and looked me over again. "No," she replied. "You are not fine. You are invisible." Then she tilted her head slightly. "Oh, look. Your brother's glass is empty," my mother said coolly. "Move aside. You are blocking the walkway to the bar." She flicked her hand at me in a dismissive, shooing motion, like I was something underfoot. As she stepped forward, her heel caught the edge of the carpet. The stumble was so exaggerated it looked rehearsed, the kind of overacting you see on low-budget daytime television. The wine in her glass did not simply tip over. It flew. A deep red splash surged straight into the front of my dress like a wave hitting shore. The liquid was icy as it soaked through the thin fabric right away, sliding down my stomach and dripping onto my shoes. The nearby conversations died instantly, the sudden silence pressing in from all sides. I froze there, sucking in air as the cold hit my skin. My mother did not say she was sorry. Instead, she pressed a hand to her mouth in a fake gasp that never touched her eyes. "Oh, for heaven's sake," she said with a tired sigh, sounding irritated more than remorseful. "Look what you made me do. You were standing right in my blind spot." "You threw it," I whispered, rubbing at the spreading stain that looked like a gunshot wound across my chest. Kevin laughed openly. "Do not be so dramatic. It is an upgrade," he said. "Adds a little color to that boring outfit." I turned to my father, waiting for something, anything. I waited for him to step in, to act like the officer he loved to claim he was. He glanced at the stain, curled his lip, and shook his head. "Wonderful," he said flatly. "Now you look like a complete mess. I cannot have you wandering around my event looking like a casualty." He pointed toward the exit. "Go sit in the car." "The car?" I asked. "Yes, the car," he snapped. "Go wait in the parking lot until the speeches are done, or just leave altogether. I am not introducing you to General Sterling when you look like a soup kitchen charity case. You are ruining the look of the evening." My mother dabbed delicately at a tiny speck of wine on her wrist. "Go on, Elena," she said. "You are drawing attention to yourself." She wrinkled her nose. "And it smells like cheap Merlot anyway." I looked at the three of them, my family, the people who were supposed to have my back. In that moment, it finally clicked that I was not really a person to them at all. I was a stage prop that had malfunctioned. A background extra who had stepped into the frame and messed up the shot. "Okay," I said. My voice did not shake when I answered. "I will change," I said calmly. Kevin let out a sharp laugh. "Change into what?" he sneered. "Unless you have a janitor's uniform stuffed in that beat-up sedan you drive." "I will handle it," I said. Then I turned around and walked away without giving him another look. I could feel all three of them staring holes into my back. As I moved off, I caught Kevin's voice trailing behind me, cracking jokes about how I probably picked up my dress at a yard sale. I did not slow down. I passed through the ballroom doors, walked past the check-in table, and stepped outside into the cool night air. A valet asked if I wanted my car brought around. I shook my head and kept going. I headed toward the far edge of the parking lot where I had parked my sedan, well away from the expensive vehicles clustered near the entrance. I unlocked it and opened the trunk. The small trunk light flickered to life, revealing a mess that told the real story of my life. There were gym bags shoved into corners, boxes of meals, ready to eat stacked unevenly, and one heavy black garment bag resting on top. Stamped across it was the seal of the Department of the Army. I stood there staring at it for a long moment. For 15 years, I had played along. I had let my family believe I was just a clerk pushing papers. I had let them think I fell short, that I never amounted to much. It was simpler than explaining the truth. The truth was, I did not process forms. I approved kinetic strikes. While my father spent his time retelling stories from the Cold War, I was leading joint task forces in the Middle East. I reached into the trunk and slowly unzipped the garment bag. Moonlight spilled across the fabric, catching the heavy gold braid running along the sleeves. This was not just any uniform. It was the Army blue mess uniform, the most formal evening dress in the United States Army. Every inch of it had been tailored precisely to fit me. I ran my fingers over the shoulder boards. They were not bare. They did not carry the oak leaf of a major or the eagle of a colonel. They bore 2 silver stars. Major General, pay grade 08. My father was a lieutenant colonel, pay grade 05. In the structure he worshipped so deeply, he was middle management. I was at the top. I closed the trunk partway and looked back toward the glowing windows of the country club. From where I stood, I could make out the dark outlines of people moving around inside the club. Through the windows, I spotted my father at the center of it all, surrounded by listeners, no doubt retelling some old training story from 1985 like it was fresh news. What he had always wanted was a soldier. He wanted someone who respected rank, hierarchy, and the chain of command above all else. As I watched, a cold, focused calm settled over me. It was the same mental switch that flipped just before a breach, when emotions shut off and purpose took over. right there in the parking lot. I peeled off the dress that was still soaked with wine. I did not bother looking around to see who might be watching. I pulled on the high-waisted trousers, the gold stripe running clean and sharp down each leg. Next came the crisp white shirt, buttoned carefully, followed by the bow tie, adjusted until it sat just right. I slipped on the mesh jacket, its weight settling onto my shoulders. It was heavy in more ways than one, carrying history, expectation, and authority. I secured the chain across the front and glanced at my reflection in the dark glass of the car window. The woman looking back at me was not Elena the clerk. She was General Ross, the hammer. I reached into the glove compartment and took out my miniature medals, one by one, pinning them neatly onto the left lapel. The ribbon rack was thick and crowded. Distinguished Service Medal, Legion of Merit, Bronze Star Medal with Valor. A solid block of color that spoke loudly without a single word. I slammed the trunk closed. The sound cracked through the quiet lot like a gunshot. Then I started toward the building. My low quarter shoes struck the pavement in a steady rhythm, a cadence burned into my bones from years of repetition. The valet noticed me first. He had been leaning against a column, scrolling on his phone. He looked up, saw the uniform, spotted the stars, and snapped upright without thinking. He had no idea who I was, but he recognized authority when he saw it. I climbed the steps to the entrance. At the check-in desk, the young woman's eyes went wide and her jaw slackened slightly. I did not pause. I pushed through the heavy double doors and entered the ballroom. The place was alive with noise. A jazz band played something fast and cheerful. Servers threaded through the crowd, balancing trays of champagne flutes. I stopped at the top of the short staircase overlooking the dance floor. I did not announce myself. I did not clear my throat. I simply stood there. I did not need to say anything. The uniform spoke for me. Army mess blues are unmistakable. They are sharp. They command attention. And when a woman wears them, people stop and look. The conversations nearest the stairs faded first. Heads turned. Eyes followed. The quiet did not stop where I stood. It spread, slow and unstoppable, rolling across the room until the entire ballroom went still. The jazz band felt it too. The drummer caught the shift first and eased off, his brushes falling silent as the music faded away. My father was still at the far end of the room with his back to me, laughing at something he had just said. It took him a moment to realize no one was laughing along anymore. When he noticed, he turned around, irritated that his audience had disappeared. He peered across the room, trying to figure out what had stolen the attention. The lighting was low, but the stage lights cut clean lines through the shadows. What he saw made his posture change. There was a figure standing there in a senior officer's uniform. His first reaction was pure excitement. He assumed it had to be General Sterling. My father smoothed his jacket, squared his shoulders, and pulled on the eager smile he saved for people he believed outranked him. That was when I started moving. Click, click, click. I stepped down the stairs, one at a time. As I descended, the crowd instinctively opened up, creating a clear path. They did not know who I was, but they knew enough to move aside. It was the same way a herd parts without thinking when something dangerous walks through. With every step closer, my father's smile began to crack. His eyes narrowed as he studied me more carefully. He recognized the walk before anything else. Then his gaze lifted to my face. His mouth fell open, but nothing came out. He looked stunned, frozen, like a fish pulled from the water and left gasping on a dock. Kevin was beside him, noticeably more drunk now. He leaned forward, squinting at me, then burst into a loud, ugly laugh. "Whoa," Kevin shouted, his voice slicing through the silence. "Look at this. Elena's playing dress up." He pointed at me. "What is that? A costume rental? You look like a band conductor." My father did not react. He did not laugh. His eyes were locked on my shoulders. He was an officer. He knew exactly what he was seeing. He understood what the stars meant. He knew the spacing, the placement, the size. And he knew it was impossible. "Kevin," my father whispered, his voice shaking now. "Shut up." "What?" Kevin said, completely unaware of what was happening. "Look at her." Kevin jeered, his drunken grin wide. "It's stolen valor, right, Dad? Tell her to take it off before she gets herself arrested." I stopped 10 feet away from them. I planted myself in position, but not the stiff, terrified posture of a recruit. This was the calm, controlled, dangerous attention of someone used to command. I met my father's eyes. "You told me to change, Colonel," I said. My voice was steady, measured, not loud, but it cut through the silence like a blade. You said my dress was inappropriate for a military function. I corrected that deficiency. My mother pushed through the crowd, her face red with fury. Elena, have you lost your mind? Take that off this instant. You are making a mockery of your father's service. Before I could answer, a deep voice boomed from the doorway behind me. Actually, ma'am, she is the only one here honoring it. The room turned as one. There, framed in the entrance, was General Marcus Sterling, for stars blazing, guest of honor. He was flanked by 2 military police officers and his aide. He was a mountain of a man, a legend in the armored divisions. My father's face went from pale to gray in a matter of seconds. He glanced at General Sterling, then back at me, his body vibrating with confusion. General Sterling walked into the room. He did not glance at my father. He did not glance at the birthday banner. His focus was unwavering, straight on me. The crowd parted instinctively, as if a tidal wave was moving through them. He stopped 3 paces away, and then the impossible happened. General Sterling snapped his heels together with a sound that cracked the air like a whip. He raised his right hand in a slow, crisp salute and held it there. "General Ross," he said, his voice warm and commanding. "I did not realize you were in the area. The Pentagon said you were still overseeing the drawdown in Sector 4. I returned the salute, precise and practiced. "Good to see you, General Sterling. I am on leave. A brief one." We dropped our salutes simultaneously. The room was so quiet you could hear ice melting in the buckets. "General," Kevin squeaked, his voice betraying panic. "Dad, why did he call her General?" General Sterling turned slowly toward Kevin, his gaze sharp, cutting, like Kevin was a stain on the carpet. Then his eyes shifted to my father. "Victor," he said evenly, "I see you have met Major General Elena Ross. But I am confused. Why is a 2-star general standing here while a retired lieutenant colonel lounges with his hands in his pockets?" My father's face contorted, his brain clearly misfiring. The daughter he had belittled, the clerk he had dismissed, the failure he had claimed to have raised, she was standing there in full command. The hierarchy he had worshipped for decades had just been obliterated, and he could not process it. She's my daughter," my father stammered, his voice shaky. "She works in logistics. She's a GS-5. She commands the logistics of the entire 3rd Army Corps." "Victor," General Sterling corrected him, calm and unyielding. "She has more combat time than you have on the golf course. And right now, she is the ranking officer in this room." My father's eyes dropped to his ill-fitting jacket, then flicked to the stars on my shoulders. 2 stars against a silver oak leaf. It wasn't a contest. It was a complete rout. "Protocol, Colonel," I said softly. My father flinched immediately. He knew exactly what I meant. In the military, when a junior officer meets a senior officer, they render honors. Father or daughter, birthday or not, it does not matter. Rank is rank. His hands trembled. He tried to laugh it off, but it came out hollow. His gaze darted around the room, searching for some ally, someone to save him. But all the guests were watching. The silence pressed down on him like a vice. He realized he had no choice. If he refused, he was admitting that the soldier he had spent his life pretending to be, his identity, his authority, was a lie. Slowly, painfully, he brought his heels together. It was agony. His hand lifted, quivering, as it traced the line from his temple to the brim of his brow. He saluted me, eyes wide, wet, a mix of humiliation and fury. "General," he choked out. I let him hold it. I let him stand there, fingers shaking, while everyone in the room watched. I thought about the wine still soaking my dress. I thought about the decades of insults, the secretary jokes, the clerk comments. I let the seconds stretch. 1, 2, 3. Then I lifted my hand and returned a casual, almost dismissive salute. "Carry on, Colonel," I said. He dropped his hand, slumped. The air seemed to drain out of him. He looked smaller than he had in decades, diminished, exposed, defeated. "I think there's been a mistake," my mother hissed, stepping forward, her voice sharp. She carried that same arrogance that always made her oblivious to real danger. "Elena, stop this charade. Tell General Sterling the truth. Tell him you just filed papers." I turned slowly to her. "I am done explaining myself to a civilian's mother. Right now, you are creating a security risk." I looked to General Sterling. "Sir, I apologize for the atmosphere." He surveyed the room, his eyes flicking to the wine stain on the floor. I was under the impression this would be a disciplined gathering. It appears to be disorganized. I came to pay respects to a veteran, I said, but I do not remain where flag officers are disrespected. Are you leaving, Elena? Yes, sir, I replied. I have a briefing in the morning. I'll walk you out, he said, falling into step beside me. I didn't look back at my family. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't hug them. I simply executed an about-face and started walking. Wait, my father's voice cracked, desperation bleeding through. General Sterling, the toast. I have a speech prepared, my father added, hope flaring in his eyes. Sterling did not even glance back. Save it for your bingo night, Victor. You just insulted the finest tactician in the army. You are lucky she's family, or I would have stripped you of your retired benefits for conduct unbecoming. We walked out through the double doors. The heavy wood closed behind us, sealing the ballroom off. The music did not restart. Outside, the air was crisp and clean. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. Sterling looked at me and allowed a rare, genuine smile to break across his face. That was brutal, Ross, he said. It was necessary, sir, I replied. He glanced at the pile of ruined fabric in my trunk. The wine. Hostile action, I said. Neutralized, he nodded. Do you need a ride? My detail can take you to the base. I'll drive, I said. I like the quiet. I drove home that night in my dress blues. I did not cry. I did not feel sad. I felt light. The weight of their approval, the approval I had been carrying for decades, was suddenly gone. I had dropped it right there on the ballroom floor. 6 months later, I was back at the Pentagon. I was sitting at my desk, reviewing deployment schedules for the Eastern European theater, when my aide, a sharp young captain, knocked lightly on the door. Ma'am, she said, you have a letter. It's flagged as personal, but it came to the official command address. She handed me a thick envelope. The handwriting made my stomach twist. My father's scrawl. I opened it carefully. There was no apology. No, I'm sorry for treating you like garbage. Instead, there was a trifold brochure for Patriots Rest, an exclusive, high-end military retirement community in Florida. Attached was a handwritten note. Elena, it read, they have a wait list of 5 years, but they expedite processing for immediate family members of general officers. I need a letter of recommendation from you. It must be on official letterhead. Your mother hates the stairs in our current house. Do this for us. Family helps family. Dad, I muttered, reading it twice. The audacity was staggering. He still didn't get it. He still thought rank was a magic wand away for better parking spots and country club perks. He did not understand that rank was a burden, earned only through blood, sweat, and sacrifice. He wanted the general's signature, but he had treated his daughter as a nuisance for 40 years. I picked up my pen. I did not write a letter of recommendation. Instead, I grabbed a standard routing slip, clipped it to the brochure, and wrote one sentence in red ink. Applicant does not meet the standards for priority status. Process through normal civilian channels. I handed the packet back to my aide, my hand steady, my mind clear. Ma'am, my aide said, holding the packet carefully. What do you want me to do with this? Send it to the Standard Processing Center in St. Louis, I said, my voice steady. The one for regular veterans. No priority tags, she asked, raising an eyebrow. It'll take 6 months just to get opened, ma'am. I know, I said. He has plenty of time. Dismissed. The captain saluted crisply and left the office. I turned in my chair, looking out the window at the Potomac River. The sun was setting, painting long shadows across the Capitol. I was Major General Elena Ross. I had a corps to run. I didn't have time for people who worshipped only the uniform and never the soldier inside it. My father wanted a salute. He got one. That was the last thing he would ever get from me. Sometimes, you have to outrank your own parents just to earn a shred of respect. And if you've ever been in that position, you understand the quiet power of it. The best revenge isn't always a scream. Sometimes, it's a steady, disciplined salute.